something we will do every single Monday is take a look at these market moves. It's how you spend. Are you ready for this? Like now you've got a dot like starting right now every Monday. Not that it changes any other day. You're always on the screen, Sammy. But pretty soon we're gonna have to get in the flow where it just explain to people how much you are on the screen watching moves, especially on a Monday.
Well, it starts on Sunday because we see
Yeah.
Circa open up the college football market at 2 o'clock Eastern. So it's a little bit different this week because we only had a handful of games. What do we have? The two FBS games, a couple FBS, first FCS, and then we had about 4 or 5 extra games. So there's really not that much, generally speaking, to respond to because we didn't have that many games. But going forward, to your point, we're going to see, 100 teams play over a weekend, and then all those lines will move Sunday into Monday, and of course, move throughout the week. This one is sort of injury related, and it's not the move that you would expect. This is 159, 160, Clemson and Georgia. Well, neither team played yet. Trevor Etienne is the starting running back at Georgia. And I'm hearing that he is not going to play this weekend. The rumor is suspension. So the natural reaction is, well, who's the backup or who are the backups? Georgia actually has a pretty relatively weak running back room this year. So this news started to come out Saturday into Sunday that ETN probably won't play. The total has gone up. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute. If Trevor Etienne, their best running back, is out, why is the total going up? You think about the way Georgia's probably going to play now, less running, more passing. So we've seen this total in the last couple of days go from 47 to 49, 49 and a half. And as you can imagine, Joe, that is not the move you would expect when a starting running back is rumored to be out. Usually it would go
Mhm.
down, but because they're likely going to be passing more, we've seen the total come up.
Here's another move that might surprise some people. And I'm looking at UCLA, Hawaii. Of course, Hawaii played over the weekend. They win, not even close to covering. They didn't even cover the opening number, which was 27 and a half. That thing closed 40, right? Unimpressive. And money's coming in on Hawaii. So UCLA opened at 18 and a half. I saw this shorter than 2 touchdowns. Now we're back at that number of 14. I was expecting it to go back up, saw it dip to 13 and a half. But I thought this was interesting that people are fading UCLA so hard that they're backing Hawaii after their poor performance at home.
I bet Hawaii plus 14 2 minutes into Deshaun Foster's press conference. So I'm a
Yes,
little
sir.
bit different than most people. I'm not exactly shorting Hawaii's lack of dominance over the weekend. I took a number that I thought was going to come down and just bet it then. I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? When they asked him to talk about his program and he said, UCLA is a school in Los Angeles, and then didn't know what to say. So I thought, hmm, maybe that guy won't have his team prepared. We've seen the buyback though, and in fact, it got down to 12 a few weeks ago, and then they laid it back to 13, and now it's basically 14 all over the country. I still think having a team that played against a team that hasn't played is a slight advantage because the cadences are down. I also, Joe, unfortunately, I watched most of that Hawaii game,
Yeah.
25-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, Hawaii had a couple touchdown passes that should have been sure things that the wind just blew the ball out of bounds. So watching that, I think they were a little inhibited by the wind and the weather. It was also raining, tough to throw the football, and that's what they do under Timmy Chang, their former quarterback, now head coach.
Mhm.
I'm still inclined to think Hawaii plus 14 is a decent bet. I don't love it, and I certainly wouldn't bet 13 and a half or 13. If you're betting Hawaii and you can lock in that plus 14 now, I would do it on Monday. People always ask, well, why should I bet on Monday? Because you have the perfect number in front of you. You have plus 14. You're going to be safe on a 2 touchdown loss. If you wait until Thursday and take 13 and it's 34-20, you are going to hate yourself.
Georgia Tech, some movement after their upset win over the weekend. That's certainly worth discussing. They play Georgia State in week number 2. The market split right now between 21 and a half, 22. We're talking about a 4-point bump. And the way some bettors approach it, they would say, "Oh man, they had the long trip, they had the huge upset. They're flying right now. They're feeling themselves. It is going to be a letdown spot." Go ahead if you want to back Georgia State, but we're just here to say that this betting market is now north of 3 touchdowns.
You could wait. I think you might be able to get a 24, but you'd have to act fast because that is a buy number for professionals, right? When you have a number that is 21 and a half now, there's no wise guy in a rush to take the points on Monday because this is probably going to be a market that as we get closer to Saturday, more people are going to pile on Georgia Tech. And they're going to remember that win against Florida State, and they're going to lay the points, and they're going to tease it, and they're going to parlay it, and they're going to wheel it. So I think, Circa right now has 22, Superbook 22. BetMGM has a 21 and a half. That's probably going to keep going up. If you like the dog, you could wait. My only issue with taking Georgia State is that this line play is going to be not fair for Georgia State.
Mm-hmm.
Tech has done a really good job. I mean, Tech's offensive line was railroading Florida State's defensive
Yes,
line,
they
Joe.
were.
What do you think they're going to do against Georgia State? The problem with these big numbers is you could have Georgia Tech up 28 late, Georgia Tech pulls the starters, and then Georgia State just, frolics down the field for a backdoor touchdown. That's the problem when you're laying 22, 23, 24. That backdoor usually is always still possible late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, missed the move. I don't want to back Georgia State. You're right. That was the difference in that game. The trenches. That's why Tech won. So that's something that I'm not interested at the time. Something that has moved over the offseason that I do find interesting. Texas changing conferences. Life is going to be a little bit different now going to the SEC. They're backing Colorado State, and it looks like they're just screaming, okay, we're fading the Longhorns all season. I understand that line of thinking. A little surprised that they're taking the stance. We're going to fade them before they even get into conference play. That number has moved 4 points over the summer. We're sitting like 32, 32 and a half. Texas is a monster favorite.
And Texas also has Michigan on deck. The Horns going to Ann Arbor week number 2, and that number now 3.5. I think I'll probably find myself on the side of Texas that game. As for this one, though, I'm laughing. I'm looking at the screen at the money line price at MGM minus 10,000. So you got to lay 10,000 to win 100 on Texas. Probably shouldn't do that. We might see Arch Manning in this game, second half. Joe, I think there's a possibility there because Quinn Ewers, one of the Heisman contenders and front runners this year, is probably going to put up, 3 or 4 touchdowns in the first half, and this could very easily be a 28-7 halftime score. At which point Texas goes up 35-7, and then maybe we do see Arch Manning, the next in the Manning quarterback logistical angle. So I don't know. I'm not going to take 32 with Colorado State. There are so many games that, and I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago and I interviewed Roxy Roxborough, and he gave this line that said, I always look for reasons not to make a bet before I make a bet. And that's exactly how I feel about Colorado State. I maybe would have considered 35 because that's a big, fat, even number, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Those are all touchdown values. I would need more than 32 to take the Rams, unfortunately.
Prime time this week. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. This thing was sitting to pick them for so long. Now it's almost across the board. 3. Aggies are favored. Irish dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. That is typically where they have a big strength against teams, offensive line and tight ends. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting that it looks like the 3s are everywhere. If you want to take Texas A&M, you could still find a 2.5 out there, but you better act quickly.
I think those 3s are going to go away pretty soon.
Yeah.
I will be on Notre Dame plus. I haven't done it yet because I was trying to get everything in order for our show. If this was like week 3 of our show, I would have already been able to show you the screenshot of my Notre Dame bet. To me, this game should be a pick 'em. It opened pick. It opened one at a couple places. And now we've gone through the 2.5. We're out to 3. You can take a 3 flat right now, minus 110. This game is going to be tied with 7 minutes to go, I think. And I do believe in what I hear is a healthy quarterback in Riley Leonard. Remember, 2 years ago when he was at Duke, this was a guy that threw for almost 3,000 yards, dual threat. Last year, though, he rolled his ankle, he broke his toe, he was in and out of the lineup. They were shooting him up like a horse. By all accounts, Riley Leonard is healthy behind a better line with better talent. I get it. People are going to bet the SEC against Notre Dame because it's been pretty profitable since Lou Holtz was calling the shots in South Bend. But I think Notre Dame's defense, especially on the line, is very, very underrated. So I will take 3 in a game I do think the Irish win. And I'm not, you know me, I'm not Notre Dame guy. I'm not at all am I Notre Dame guy. I'm going to take 3 with the Irish. I had to ask you about our guy, James Franklin. Because you know that guy, nobody likes to run up scores or backdoor or front door cover you more than Penn State. This line opened 10. It is now down to 8.5. And I have this inkling that we're going to see Penn State go back the other way. It's not going to go to 7. And if it does, you're going to see a lot of people lay 7 with the Nittany Lions against West Virginia. I think Penn State might come out a little bit sluggish, but they have shown you multiple times in the last handful of years that in the fourth quarter, James Franklin knows what the spread is, and he's going to go out of his way to try and cover. Remember last year against Northwestern, he had the backup quarterback in. They did the fake knee touchdown pass to cover like 26. That guy knows the number every single game, and he tries to cover it.
He knows how to keep the alumni happy. That's exactly what that is. People joke about it all the time. That's a real thing. When there's no pressure from the donors to the bosses, like, hey, get this guy out of here. They got big bets. They're sitting in their expensive seats, and you end up covering time after time. Oh, yeah, he rolls it up. There's no question about it. I totally agree. There are some 9s, so you're probably right. It's not getting to 7. So if
No.
you're not going to make the move now, what are you waiting on? You waiting on an 8? Like, really? How valuable is that number in this specific matchup? That was interesting that number came down. I don't really understand why, but yeah, that is certainly worth taking a look at. Every day, it is going to be myself, Joe Ostrowski, along with my buddy Sam Panayotovich. We're officially going from 3 hosts down to 2, but a big addition. It's going to take a while, Sammy, before it sets in that this is really happening here.
I can't believe you smiled 30 seconds into the show. 30 seconds in, we got a little bit of a smile there, Joe.
Oh, I smile throughout. I smile. It depends. Depends on the day. Talking to Paul, probably not. Talking to you, yeah, maybe. But yeah, man, it's not everybody knows the backstory. I just know we were on Daily Tip talking a little bit about it. But yeah, we go way back, known each other about a decade. We knew there was going to be a ride with sports betting. It was only a matter of time. Overturning past, but changed everything. It changed our lives, changed our careers. And there's a whole lot of people that are trying to jump in. They don't really know what they're talking about, but they're trying. And the network said, you know what? Both of you know what you're talking about. Let's put you together.
Well, I can tell you this. I got a text about 20 minutes ago. Already, this is basically my life now these days. I got a text that said, hey, there's some problems cooking at Minnesota right now. College football could be down a couple important starters. And if they are out, they are in trouble. This is Monday, Joe. That game isn't until Thursday. So this is the type of information we're going to be privy to. And then we get the information. We have to source the information. And then you have it, and then you decide, well, do we bet the dog? Do we bet the under? What do we do with that information? So those are all the things that go into the machine, and we have to pump out a bet or an actionable, I guess, angle for us to all partake in said information. But When I went to Vegas 2 years ago, it was basically, or for 2 years rather, it was a crash course in bookmaking and odds moving and crunching information. And I used to sit in the back of some of these books Saturday morning before college football, and they would get this info that, hey, quarterback one is out at Oklahoma. What do we do? And there'd be a conversation amongst three guys. Well, where do we move it? No, that's too far. That's too little. And then the sharps come in and make moves. So those processes that you sort of retain forever help you move forward and help you understand how, when information does come in, how do the bettors treat it, how do the bookmakers treat it. So sort of like an inside baseball type conversation when it comes to said information. But that's just one part of the teeter totter. I mean, this racket, it never sleeps. Stockbrokers,
Yeah.
they get up at 8 in the morning, they do their job, they're done at mid afternoon, late afternoon. This thing never sleeps, man. It's 24/7, 365 all year round. The clock never sleeps.
I hesitate to say exactly what this show is going to be, but what you just went into, what you started talking about, I think that's what a lot of this show is going to be. And I think that's why, even though we were raw and we were just starting off, we were saying some off the wall stuff when we started a podcast. We were much younger back then. It's kind of like on a much smaller scale. But I was thinking about the Stern Whack Pack, like some of the people that we would bring on the show. Like that, I don't know if Paul is going to give the okay on some of those people returning. I don't know that we want to, but yeah, we'll see. Like, you have an idea of what the show's going to be and what you talked about right there. I think certainly we're going to level up the conversation. I don't want to say we're going to make you smarter, but I think we're going to have a smarter conversation, a higher level sports betting conversation than you're going to find most places. That's my thought going in.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that episode we did 8 years ago when we drank vodka the entire time. I don't think that's going
Oh
to
no.
be a BetQL daily staple. Well, I didn't ask management yet. That's sort of a question that you don't really ask, especially leading into your first show. But I've always thought of betting content as sort of like a triangle with the entertainment at the top, because nobody wants to hear two librarians talk about sports betting. But then you
Mm-hmm.
have to ring the bottom parts too with the information and the education. So as long as we can sort of hit all sides of that over our 3-hour show, I think we're going to make people pretty happy.